Virgo, and welcome to my forecast stroke horoscope for all Sun sign Virgos and Virgo rising for 2015. Now this runs through from January 2015 through to December 2015. My name is Gordon and I will be your host for the next 15 minutes or so as we briefly skimp over the highlights and lowlights of 2015. You can get in contact with me, remember, if you wish to, via my website, which is www.gordonrobertspiritmedium.co.uk, shown there at the bottom of the page. Okay, onwards and upwards. Virgo 2015. What sort of a year is it going to be for you? If I had to describe Virgos in one word for 2015, it would be break free. That's how I would look at 2015 for you guys. Now, Virgo, what is the main movers and shakers? Well, there are a couple of planets and a couple of combinations that we need to look at here. There's solar and lunar eclipses coming up for you, which I'm not going to go into too much detail on those per se, because I tend to do those on the weekly and the monthly forecast that we send out as and when they happen, and we look at them in more detail. Needless to say, when eclipses occur, it means either something major happening, either giving or taking in the year that comes up. But first of all, let's have a look at one of the main movers in your chart, which is going to be quite important to you. And with Virgo, this actually is Saturn, is the first planet I want to consider. Now, Saturn is a big, slow planet. It's a taker. It tends to examine things in very finite detail and teach us lessons. So when we try and skip over the surface, Saturn says, hey, you can't do this, we need to learn a lesson. Now, Virgo, you are not somebody that tends to skip over detail. You are someone actually that tends to have quite attention to detail. And so you run quite well with Saturn, but we don't want to get too involved with maybe Saturn's pessimistic energy, because that can hold us back. Now, Saturn has been in very, very deep delving Scorpio over the last couple of years in your chart, and this has been to do with communication, really, with you. So you may have found the key over the last couple of years could be getting your point across, finding that you've really hit the mark with other people you come in contact with, projects you come in contact with, and you could have found it a little bit frustrating because it's in water and Scorpio likes to go deep, as does Virgo, so it could have been a slow time for you. But as we come into 2015, then we see Saturn change its sign and it moves into much more expansive Sagittarius. Now this opens up an area of your chart which is more major than the third house where it's moving from. It's moving into the fourth. Now the fourth is all to do with your root energy. What keeps you going? What makes you tick? Can also be to do with houses as well, so it will make you look for house moves. It can also make you look into the area to do with parenting, fatherhood, that kind of areas. It brings you back to grassroots. But when it moves into the fourth house, it also is going to be setting up an aspect with your first house. And as we go later into the year, you're going to want to be expanding around that area. So you're going to have a bit of a year of a few, I wouldn't say tensions, because that's not the right word, but it's being pulled in one direction, being pulled in another, and having to make the clear-cut decisions as to which way to go. Now, an important player with you also is Pluto. Pluto and Uranus, and you probably would have heard me talking about this as we've been through 2014 and also into 2015. Now Pluto is quite a ruthless planet, and it sits very nicely in your fifth house, in the house of Capricorn. Now this is the house of expansion, this is the house of business, it's the house of fun, it's the house of relationships. And up until now, there's been a little bit of a playoff. There's been a bit of probably a scenario where you're not sure whether you should be going in a relationship or looking for a relationship, perhaps not the right one has come along. As we've gone through the end of 2014 and into 2015, relationships seem to have come a little bit to the fore, because There is also a playoff with Uranus, which is a planet of expansion, a planet of surprise, you know, and that's been sat in your 8th house. Now the 8th house is a bit of a funny house, a very quirky house. It can come to the fore and it can just disappear into the background. People often talk of it as being a secretive house. It's all to do with life, birth, death, sex, universe, everything like that that you can look into in great depth. Now, when that house gets lit up and then the light gets turned off again, lit up and turned off again, it means around relationships, and it means that you can be on the tip, for some of you Virgos out there, of a very expansive, permanent relationship that you've been looking for quite some time. Almost soulmate time is what I want to say. But there's still going to be a little bit of an element of do I, don't I, as we go through 2015. Now, as you go through the year, one of the real main players that comes into play is Jupiter with you, and this runs from your 12th into your 1st house. Now this has the effect of hidden desires. Now what you might class as the start to the year where you're still to and fro in and ahhing, wondering what you should and shouldn't do, certainly around relationships. And bear in mind, relationships can also relate to the work scenario if you're not happy with your relationship with your work. But I do feel with you, Virgo, is more to do with a relationship orientated year. Now that, as I said, can be often to do with partners. Now, partnerships are your main key, partnerships are your main theme as you go into 2015, then you're going to be pleasantly surprised by the time you reach the end of 2015. But it can also work with business as well. It's breaking yourself free. Remember, that is your key phrase for 2015, breaking free. Breaking free from the regime of the last year, 18 months, and making the changes that will put you where you want to be, secretly where you want to be, where you've always yearned to be. Now, when we go into September, beginning of September-ish, August, September, that sort of time, we find that Jupiter, this lovely expansive planet, which snuck into your 12th house this year, so it had been a bit quiet, you wouldn't really have noticed the benefits that this has brought. But what it does do, it comes into your 1st house, and that's when it really starts to come into the light, and it adds it adds a burst of flavour, a burst of colour to your lovely chart. And this is when I feel really, Virgo, that life starts to take off for you, because, you know, it plays very nicely with Pluto in your 5th house, because what it's saying is, okay, yes, says Pluto, we want to shine the light, we want to get the truth, and it is fueled. The only way to put it is fueled by Jupiter, which is expansive. It's like Father Christmas arriving on Christmas Day. It's saying, yeah, come on then, let's take the gamble, let's analyse it, but we know that it can work. And something that you've been building up to really does have the energy to come to a fabulous fruition as you go towards September, October, November, towards the end of the year. This really pushes you. This can be anything from a business idea to a relationship, something that you've always wanted to do, but you've not been able to bring it into the light. So if a new relationship has come in and it is working, it will work fantastically. If new work is coming in, it will start off to a wobbly start, but then expand and really take and get legs, as we say, you get momentum as we go towards the end of the year and are saying goodbye to 2015. So as you're stood at the end of the year with your champagne glass, looking out over the sea, considering the sunset, what did 2015 have in store for me? Well, Mr. Virgo and Mrs. Virgo, I want to say to you that you will be looking back over 2015 as a surprise year. A year where you never thought you could achieve what you have achieved. And this, as you come in and leave 2015, going into 2016, will just be the beginning of a huge, great adventure. It's looking fabulous, I feel, 2015 for you. It's got its challenges, but you're being given the power to overcome those challenges, because the challenges really do emanate purely from your own inner hopes and fears. And we know, Virgo, that you love to analyse, and sometimes you can overanalyse, but that, I feel, is being the need to overanalyse, or the time to overanalyse, is taken away, so you tend to enjoy things more. Forbidden fruit, breaking free, lovely year. Thank you so much for listening to me, and I hope that's given you an overview for your 2015 that is coming up for you. My name is Gordon. You can see along the bottom of the screen www.gordonrobertspiritmedium.co.uk. That's where you can get in contact with me on a personal basis. You can also find out your rising sign if you're not too sure, or simply if you want to subscribe to the channel, please feel free to do so, because it means then you get the regular updates sent through to your email, I believe, and you can keep track of what's happening astrologically for you. Thank you very much, and speak to you soon.